Hey guys, Paeter friends, I'm here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, here with my son Titus to present our uncut review of the classic father of all modern horror movies, Jaws, which I watched maybe for the second time in my life, and Titus watched for the first time in his life. So before we kind of get into what we thought of the movie, first off, this is going to be even more kind of like just off the cuff than usual. I'm going to follow some of the basic, we're going to hit some of the basic bullet points that I usually do in my reviews, but this is going to be kind of an off the cuff discussion. So first, how old are you? What grade are you in?
I'm 12 and I'm in 7th grade.
Okay. And you like horror movies. You kind of discovered an interest in them, I don't know, a couple years ago maybe. And we've been watching horror movies before now. Name some of the horror movies that we've watched together.
Well, we've watched the first 2 Alien movies. We've seen Predator. We've seen Alien vs. Predator. We've seen The Void, The Thing, the prequel to The Thing, a bunch of the Jeepers Creepers movies. And
I think just the 2 of them, right?
Well,
Did we?
no, we watched the first 2 and then we watched the new one that came out like last year.
Did we really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's right. Were they like, it was like 20-somethings in a house and trying to survive the creeper? Oh yeah, that's right. That's the 4th one. There was a 3rd one too that I think
You said it was really bad.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, okay. So, but you had never seen Jaws, and that was for a couple reasons. One, I couldn't remember how much I liked it. I remember there was one scene where Alex Kittner was killed in the water, the little kid on the raft, on the inflatable raft. And I remember that scene being really impactful, but I couldn't remember how much I liked the rest of the movie, if it would hold up today. It's also not, I guess, technically a monster. It's a giant shark, even though
It's unrealistic.
It is, yeah. It goes to some unrealistic places where the characters even say, "Have you ever seen a shark do this before?" And the shark expert's like, "No," you know. So, but nevertheless, it took some persuasion because we were going to watch Alien 3, which we still will, hopefully soon. But since Jaws was on Netflix, I didn't know how long it would be there. I was like, this is the window because I don't own this one. And what was your knee-jerk reaction? What did you think just overall?
Well, I had loved it. Not thinking I would love it, since it's like such an old movie.
Yeah.
It would appear as like an Alien movie, just like with worse graphics.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But there was no CGI, so that made it look a lot more realistic.
Yeah. See, I don't know if that's genes or if I've trained him right, but I mean, it's like similar to me. I feel the same way about CG. If the practical effects are done well, the movie ages so much better than CG, which can just very quickly kind of look fake to the eye. If you've never seen Jaws, the basic story is there's a police chief who I think is from New York. Does that sound right?
Yeah, he's like staying in wherever he is.
Okay.
I can't remember.
They're in Amity, which is an island town, a tourist town, and he's fairly new to the job. I get the sense maybe he's only been there a few years or something like that. Still, he knows the locals, but he wasn't born there, you know. And he also has an aversion to water. Like did he have a drowning experience, almost a near drowning experience or something when he was a kid? Do you remember something?
I don't remember.
Okay, that's one thing that I noticed about the movie this time is like the dialogue is hard to follow at times, and I think it's because they probably did very little comparatively post-production where they re-record the lines later on, watching themselves on the screen, which most movies, like 70% or more of the dialogue is redone that way. But I feel like the mics, they just used the sound that was there while they were shooting, because like background noise and other people talking, muttering in the background would get in the way. So did you have trouble following in that sense, like what people were saying sometimes?
Sometimes it was mainly when the whatever you want to call him. It's the
expert, the rich expert?
No, the other one.
Oh, the shark hunter.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's when he was talking about his story from World War II.
Yes. Well, he also had kind of a thick accent of some kind. And so there was that as well. But yeah, but he slurred his words, and yeah. So, but I feel like for most of the movie, it's about capturing a feel and a tone, and so like the dialogue isn't as important. But you can still hear it more clearly than I think in your average Christopher Nolan movie these days. But So you said last night when I got your reaction that you liked the story. So what did you like about the story?
Let's see, I'm trying to remember. Just how they're like trying to figure out how to stop the shark, and how the chief's wife is afraid that something's gonna happen to him, and that she's just like really gonna miss him and hope he doesn't like die or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and you specifically used the word family last night when talking about the chief and his family. Because they did give moments to, like, the cute kid at the table who's, like, imitating his dad, what his dad is doing, even though his dad is, like, stressing out and, like, just doing different things unconsciously with his hands, and the kid is kind of imitating him and stuff. It really brought a sweetness to that family and helped us care about the characters. And I don't know if you feel the same way, but for me, I need to care about the characters in a horror movie in order for me to feel tense during the horror movie. And caring about him and his wife's feelings about his safety, and knowing that he has two boys, right? He had a slightly older one and then the really little one, right? Knowing that he has two boys at home that would miss him, you're feeling it more. And we're going to get into full spoilers here because we want to just totally get into the movie. It's been around since 1975, which the Netflix version, whatever film transfer or master they're working with, it really looks nice because it doesn't look like, crappy visuals, But 1975, which is before I was born, which Titus was surprised about.
I thought it was like 1983.
Yeah. Well, again, the film master looks really nice on Netflix, so whatever they're working with is great. And the audio was good too. I would have liked maybe a little bit more of a remaster there with a bass could carry things a little bit more. But what was I going to say? Interrupt me if you have any thoughts while I'm thinking. Yeah, no, I don't remember where I was going with that. Something with the story. Oh, caring about the characters. And the shark hunter dies near the end. And I remember that I can't remember if you like kind of gripped me or there's something there. I got a sense something in your body language communicated that like that was an intense thing, or like, but you described it as what, feeling sad? Feeling sad, yeah.
Because I liked him.
You liked him. What did you like about him?
He was funny. He was like very active. Looked like he knew what he was doing. Except sometimes he didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just liked how he worked with the others and tried to capture the shark.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's talk about. I don't think we need to talk about performances too much. Although I will say that Spielberg, I think, was allowing for, as I think I've seen in some of his other earlier movies, kind of like an improvisatory style of performing, where you get the sense that, I don't know if they were ad-libbing or there was just more stuttering, or there was something about the performances, particularly Richard Dreyfuss, I would notice. And maybe part of it was how the sound was not always perfectly capturing what everybody was saying. But I felt like in the performance, in a lot of scenes, it wasn't perfectly crafted for us to understand every word, and every delivery wasn't perfect and smooth and stuff. There was this feeling of being almost a fly on the wall with a really good view, because the camera always had a good position, but a fly on the wall and just kind of listening to the atmosphere and people just kind of like, it felt really organic in a neat way. So I guess that's all I would say about the performances. Did you have a favorite character?
If anything, probably the little boy. That was imitating.
That was imitating you.
He was really cute.
Yeah. And he wasn't even involved in the shark hunting.
No.
Yeah. You said at one point that like the police chief, like if he wasn't the main character, he wouldn't even be on the boat or something like that.
Yeah, because he's like barely helping out and doesn't even know what he's doing.
Yeah. And it's important, I think, to have that kind of character who... All the characters are wrong at some points. The shark hunter was wrong about some things. The Richard Dreyfuss, the young, rich expert, was wrong about some things. And then the chief, the police chief, he was wrong about a lot of stuff because he didn't know what he was doing, But I think having him there helped us as the audience feel what maybe, that we could relate to being in that situation, because we would be like him. We'd like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to help survive with this crazy shark. I don't know anything about this, So, okay, so let's talk about the visuals and just how this movie has aged. It's not CG, and so at least it doesn't look unrealistic in the sense of the shark is not present with the actors, but animatronics have their weaknesses too. How did you feel about just kind of like the shark, and did you feel like the way it was filmed, the way it was used, that it looked really fake a lot of the time, or that it looked realistic, or how did you feel about the way the shark looked?
Well, like a lot of the time it looked realistic. Like I said yesterday, that they did a really good job at making the shark like look and do things that an actual shark would do.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining it was the scene where the shark was like on the boat, like half his body was on the boat and he was going,
yeah, kind of flopping back and forth. Yeah.
That like I've seen in National Geographic, that things like that's how sharks behave.
Yeah.
And you told me they used a real shark at some points.
Yes, yeah, they did. And this is, I might be wrong on this, but I think I'm right, because I watched making of features years ago when I watched the full movie for the first time. And they, in some shots, I believe it was some of the underwater shots involving the shark cage, they would swap out Dreyfus, or I think maybe by that point he wasn't even in the cage anymore,
No.
but they would show footage of a real shark that they had put chum in the water to get it to kind of interact and thrash around this cage they put in there. But the cage they put in there for those shots was smaller, so that by comparison, the shark they were using was much larger and would be more to the scale of the shark that of what size Bruce was supposed to be, which I told Titus that it's not in the story that the shark is called Bruce, but in the making of it, they called the mechanical shark Bruce, and he broke down famously many, many times, and they always found it such a frustration to get the crazy thing to work. But yeah,
and then there was also that shark in Finding Nemo that they named him after.
That was named Bruce after the mechanical shark, yes. I was bracing this time, because it might have been since my 20s that I last watched this. I'm 45 now. It might have been in my 20s, maybe even in college when I was taking a film class. Like, it's been a long time. But I was kind of bracing for the shark to look fake after all these years, and it really wasn't. And for me, I think a lot of it had to do with how they were shooting the shark and what they were kind of putting in front of it. It did have some slower movements. There were some scenes where I was like, that's definitely a real shark, because the shark was thrashing really quickly underwater. And I was like, we've never seen the mechanical shark do that kind of fast motion. The mechanical shark does tend to move more slowly, but they hide it by using quicker cuts. So the shark will burst out of the water pretty fast, but as far as like the shark's articulations, those are still not going to be really fast. So that you got a burst of the shark, you see the shark, and then they cut away. And so they create this illusion of the shark moving more quickly than it actually is because of the way they're filming it. And then also sometimes you'll see the shark in the background very much filling the screen, but still with some things in the foreground like actors or pieces of the boat or something like that. So you almost never get a really good view of the shark, and certainly not for a significant length of time. And I think that goes a long way to helping trick you into feeling like the shark looks more realistic, or at least is moving more realistic than it would. So I was really surprised at how well the visuals held up. I'm sure that there's like maybe Deep Blue Sea or some other stuff where they use a little bit of animatronics that are more advanced and would look better today. So I wouldn't dispute that. But I was just surprised at how much I was engaged with this shark and suspending disbelief, accepting it as a real shark.
I also heard at one point, like at the first kill in the movie, when the girl was just swimming out into the ocean and she was pulled under. I heard one time that she knew she was going to get pulled under, but I don't think she knew when.
Oh, yeah. I think you're right. Yeah, it felt very organic, like some producer, somebody, some rig or something was given the command to yank her when she wasn't expecting it. And yeah.
Well, no, I think there was an arm, like a mechanical arm that would grab her leg and pull her down.
Oh, really? Okay, I don't know anything about how that was made, but it definitely felt like she did not see it coming when she was pulled under, so yeah, it was like all the drama, like the Alex Kittner, you see him, so he's in the background and you see this flopping of a shark fin flopping over. It's almost like, what am I seeing? Like, you're not even sure what you're seeing. And so they hide the shark, they hide the monster, as I think the phrase goes. And that model started, I believe, with this movie, and so many movies we talked about last night have followed that model. The Thing follows it, Alien follows it. You pointed out that Predator also follows it, where there's lots of POV from the monster's point of view, but you don't see the monster until like somewhere in the second or third act, And that really, I think that formula was started here, if I'm not mistaken, but certainly like hugely influential. But despite not seeing the monster, we saw a lot of what the monster does in this movie, namely the gore, the blood. This was originally a PG movie. That was before they had did they have R ratings? Like, maybe they did. But anyway, I don't think this would make a PG cut. It still gets the PG label when you see it on Netflix. But so, what did you think of like the gore and like the blood and the violence? Was it kind of like, as a horror fan, was it too tame, or did you feel like, oh, that is intense?
I thought it was kind of intense.
Yeah.
I had pointed out that I thought it was worse than Upgrade, or not worse, but like more gory than Upgrade.
Yeah.
It's
Which I would say it's not, but it was very intense.
Yeah. Especially like at the very end when the shark was like exploded. There was a whole bunch of pieces of the shark and blood.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that like when the shark hunter was being killed, his body, the shark had his mouth around his waist, but like between the actor's performance and then just blood coming out of his mouth was very unsettling, because you get the sense that, oh man, yeah, it's totally going wrong inside of him, and now the blood's coming up as a result of that. I mean, it was like it was very intense. It wasn't just like gore for the sake of gore. I think these days there's a lot of movies that are just like, oh, they just throw buckets of blood splattering off of people, and you don't have the feeling of intensity about it that I felt in this movie when there was even less blood involved, so.
And they used like a really, really good and realistic bone crunching sound when he bit into his leg. That was really realistic.
Oh yeah, that was unsettling. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
When it played, I was like, oh.
Yeah. Almost as bad as the nails on the chalkboard, right? When the shark hunter like quieted everybody in the room.
No, that was a whole lot worse.
Yeah, that got me too. I was a little surprised. Let's see. So, as far as like any kind of themes or lessons or morals in the story, this I had to do a little bit of digging to think about, but they are there. I was thinking that there are a couple of flaws in characters that lead them into trouble. There's greed on the part of the mayor. I mean, you could argue maybe it's not greed because it is the livelihood of these people here, but he still seemed pretty callous about like, hey, we should let people keep going swimming. Okay, the shark, whatever, it'll be fine, We got to make sure that our income is still coming.
And then afterwards he felt really guilty because his kids were also on the beach.
That's right. And he was, what was he doing? Do you remember what he was doing when he was talking to himself? Do you remember what I used to kind of describe what he was doing?
No, I don't.
He was really trying to justify himself. And I said to Titus last night, this is what we all do when we feel really bad about something we did. We try to justify ourselves. This is why the world needs Jesus so much. Because
Isn't that like called penance or something?
Well, penance is that's more of a Catholic idea, I think. And that's when you do something to make up for, if I'm not misunderstanding, you do something to try and make up for the wrong that you did. Mm-hmm. But he was trying in his mind, saying, it was for the good of the people. I was making the best decisions for the town. He was trying to paint over his mistake and say that actually it wasn't a mistake. I was making the right choice at the time. But then at the same time, he turned to the police chief and said it was my kids out there too, telling us that he really does feel horrible about the decision that he made and what it could have done to his own kids. So there was kind of like that sense of greed, arguably, on his part. But then also the shark hunter got them all into big trouble near the end by the choice he made. What choice did he make?
He was like overusing the engine.
That's right.
Like racing the shark, and the shark was really fast.
Yeah, it was. It was. That's part of the unrealism, maybe at the end. I don't know. I don't know enough about great whites.
He was racing the shark, and the ship ended up breaking down and sinking.
Yeah. And do you remember why he had it in so much for this shark?
Because he wanted to kill the shark, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember what was kind of motivating that from his past?
No.
No, it was there was the horrible story that he told about being in World War II on the Indianapolis, I think it's called, which is, I think, a real event. A ship sank, and it did not have rescue for days. So there were men out there just floating in the water, and many of them were killed by sharks. And this being in 1975, this guy being probably in his 50s, he was the right age to have been a soldier in World War II, and survived that, and just hundreds of men were killed either by drowning or by sharks. And so he really had it in for sharks. And so for him, he made foolish choices that got others in trouble because of the wounds of his past, and this sense of wanting to bring about justice himself. And so it really occurred to me that, like, we can, when we have been wounded in certain ways in the past and want to take it upon ourselves to make things right or to get some form of repayment, whether it's to the one that wronged us or to someone else, we just kind of can feel justified in our anger, and that can lead us into some foolish choices that bring harm to us and that bring harm to other people. And so those were a couple of things that maybe popped out a little bit, but I think you really have to dig big time, if you want to look for kind of morals to the story or any kind of ideas that might be worth thinking about on that level. Okay, so we have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if we were time travelers, we're going to pretend to time travel for a second here. If we were time travelers, we'd go, and we would say, what would you say to yourself or to us if you could time travel and go back? We're trying to decide, should we watch this movie or not? What would you say to us?
I would say, yeah, it's a good movie. You should watch it. Brace yourself.
Brace yourself because it's like more intense, maybe?
Yeah, it's gory.
Yeah, it's gory. Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, yeah, if you haven't seen it in a long time, but it does hold up surprisingly well. And there's also a great story and characters to care about, which is so key, especially for a movie that you're wondering about, will this hold up or not? You can know at the very least going in that the characters hold up well and help you invest in the story, and then the other elements will surprise you in how well they hold up after all this time. All right, this one is rated PG.
Technically should be rated R.
Yeah, it probably should be R today for some of the gore and the violence and blood and stuff like that. Language, very tame. I don't remember any language issues. And
there were a couple.
There's a brief scene at the beginning where you kind of see silhouetted nudity or nudity from behind. So you could get away with it in a PG-13 movie, and it's pretty brief. But that would be about kind of like the nature of the content there. But anyway, those are all of our thoughts for now on Jaws. And as always, I would love to get your comments and reactions below. Please like, share, subscribe, click the bell, do the stuff to help support this channel. I really appreciate that. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making this review possible. You can get info about the benefits of joining over at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Then I hope you'll check out our podcast, stay connected to all CGC content over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to... Do you know my phrase at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah? You want to say it?
Continue to geek out and seek the truth.
That's right. It is time again for Christian Geek Central's annual Game Save event, fundraising for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, which provides free treatment for children facing life or death circumstances and shares its cutting-edge, life-saving research with hospitals all over the world. And once again this year, I'm drawing attention to our team's fundraising by performing a 24-hour marathon of video gaming that I will live stream on youtube.com/ChristianGeekCentral beginning 6 a.m. Pacific Time on Saturday, November 4th. You can donate or get more info by clicking on my fundraising page in the links below, where you'll also find incentives and rewards for doing so. On top of that, I've set fundraising milestones that will unlock strange and unusual happenings as I reach them. Finally, if I reach my $500 goal by the end of Thursday, October 19th, I will do a 4-hour Get Good live stream before the end of the year, playing only the most frustrating, difficult games in my collection. Now, there are some stipulations and time limits on those rewards and milestones, so quickly follow the link below to my fundraising page for all the details. Believe it or not, this makes the 10th consecutive year of Christian Geek Central raising funds for kids in great need of medical care. I hope you'll be a part of helping me and the Christian Geek Central Game Save team do some good for some kids who really need it. And then please join me at youtube.com/Christian Geek Central for my 24-hour marathon starting at 6 a.m. Pacific on Saturday, November 4th. Hope to see you there.